Hey. So, uh, I wanted to do a little bit of a reaction or ramble sort of thing. Um, and it is, what is it, November 5th, Wednesday, 2025. Right now, it is 10:45 p.m., so it is very late to be doing much. Um, but I wanted to make some cookies, or at least make some cookie dough to be used another day, and having it, chill in the fridge or whatever for when I want to use it. Um, I figured today was a good day to do it because tonight I have the house to myself. My mom went to visit my aunt in Cherry Hill or whatever, like more than an hour away. So one rare opportunity when I had the rare opportunity when I had the house to myself, I'm like, fuck it, might as well do something late and recording or whatever. And I was going to talk about some topics I had noted down. Um, Not like particularly incredible topics, but just stuff I had noted down. Uh, yeah, I have the lights. This kitchen, the renovation. My uncle, he also put in these lights that have a dimming feature. So, or at least the switch has a dimming feature to it or whatever. So these lights are pretty low right now. They're not all the way to the bottom, that's for sure, but they're pretty low. Figure it's late. Make the lighting a little bit more moody. Why not? Fuck it. Um, Maybe it'll make it easier to fall asleep after I'm done with this as well, but I'll see. Um, what I should have done, well, I could do that fairly easily with the calculator, but so I'm gonna make some cookie dough. Now, last time, I don't even know if it was last time, but that I recorded, might not have been, but at some point I made nutmeg cookies. I think that was the last time I recorded. I made nutmeg cookie dough, but yeah, they came out pretty good. Um, Better than I expected, considering they didn't have any flavoring or anything besides the nutmeg. So that was kind of surprising. Um, so I was like, it was a really simple recipe, and the cookie dough was easy to work with, all that shit, and the flavor was surprisingly decent. So I'm like, well, why don't I try three other spices that I probably wouldn't normally try in like some kind of cookie dough shit. I'm like, well, let's see how they turn out just flavored that way. So I'm gonna try first some turmeric, which I have not used in anything yet, but I hear people like to use it sometimes. But I have some turmeric, so I'm like, fuck it, might as well use some of that. Cardamom, which is not something I have used yet either, but it does have a pretty distinctive, strong, spicy taste or smell to it. So cardamom and ground allspice, which allspice is often used in stuff like gingerbread, carrot cakes, um, stuff like that. More holiday kind of like stuff because it gives that kind of like spicy sort of. It's not. When it says allspice, it's not like all spices together. It is a thing called allspice, but it does have a very similar taste to many of those other spices. Weirdly enough, that like nutmeg, ginger, cinnamon, that kind of thing. But I'm just gonna try and cookie that is just all allspice. See how that goes. It'll probably just taste pretty similar to like a gingerbread cookie, honestly. But let's see. So I'm gonna do that, and using math, I'm just going to make one batch at once with the wets, and then I'll do the dry on their own and shit. Uh, But yeah, enough of that, I guess. Um, and I'll try and do stuff while I'm talking about stuff. So the first thing I wanted to bring up was shit about the daylight savings time that just went by on the, I believe it was the 2nd that daylight savings time ended, I guess. And what I wanted to talk about that was, it's like, it was funny. Okay, let me do like a quick fucking bit of math here. So, calculator, 135 times 3, 405, 405, and then 70 times 3 is 210. So 210 and 405. 210 white sugar, 405 brown sugar. I don't know. Hopefully this, at least I think that part should at least mix fine in this bowl. It's a fair amount of stuff at once, but should be all right. I'll have to see. It'll probably actually be somewhat difficult to cream it all together, but we'll see. And I'm gonna need more sugar, but whatever. I'll try to talk at the same time. Fuck it. So, this daylight savings time, I remember a lot of people, not even a lot of people, I remember a few people saying, oh yeah, we're going to have to, daylight savings time is ending, the clocks are going to go forward or whatever, so we would get less daylight kind of shit or something of that sort. And, that's what I was, assuming was going to be the case when the time went by that, the day. But then I noticed all the, all the digital clocks that are connected to the internet or whatever and automatically update, they all went backward an hour or whatever. Like there was, so if it was like, I don't know, 10, if it was 10 a.m. when the clocks changed, then it would have become, it would have become 9 a.m. So it went back an hour. And it's funny because, like I was saying, almost everybody else that had talked about it, like, I think, Rudy, you mentioned it, something about going forward, or at the very least, daylight savings. My mom said something about it, that I was going to go forward an hour, and even somewhere else it said go forward, and then when I realized, I was like, what the hell, like, it went backward instead, like, it went backward an hour. I was like, that's strange. And, I don't know, I know it sounds stupid to like, immediately attribute that as a Mandela effect or whatever, but just the fact that it occurred, and it was like different than everybody else was saying, was just something that caught my attention, that I felt like I wanted to bring up. But also the fact that it kind of caught my attention was, or the reason it caught my attention was that it seemed like this change in hours has so far had much more of an effect on me than it normally would. Like, at least for me, normally when the clock changes or whatever, for whichever one, the daylight savings or the daylight ending, whatever the fuck it's called, usually for me it doesn't really affect me that much or do anything. But this time it seems like it did, and that's what made me kind of think like something might have changed here. Something might have changed here. Wow. Fucking right on the dot. At least by the scale. 210. 210. Yep, 210. Right on the dot. But yeah, my sleep has been affected more than usual or whatever, or at least my like schedule or whatever you want to call it, by the times changing this year for some reason. And I guess maybe just the fact that I noticed it, I was like, that is fucking weird. Like I've been waking up like a little bit more, well, for one, I've been going to sleep way earlier than I like kind of normally would. Because say if I would start getting tired at around like 10 p.m. or whatever, or at least maybe not tired, but I have the feeling where I'm like, I could go to sleep right now. Around 10 p.m. Now I'd be feeling that around like 8:30 or 9 on the clock. And you know, technically, if we weren't even using the clocks, then you know what I'm seeing on the clock of like 9 is actually 10 or whatever. Like you know, technically nothing outside of the stupid clock system has changed. But you know, we're told to be like, all right, you know, something changed, so we have to act differently or whatever. But I was still feeling like, okay, well, obviously, yeah, I was still feeling like, okay, right now it would be 10. And I was feeling like, all right, I'm tired, but the clock only says 9 kind of shit. And it's just strange that normally I wouldn't really have any, like, feeling or effect of this fact. Like the changing of the time would be very inconsequential. But yeah, it's just weird that the past like 4 days or something since the daylight savings and the noticing of the kind of potential Mandela effect or whatever of it has made my sleep pattern feel different. Or maybe just my pattern of when I decide to go to sleep kind of thing. So that's just something I wanted, some aspect I wanted to note. That was kind of weird about this daylight savings that just came by and shit. Oh yeah, and even like, I think my dad's sleep has been a little bit messed up, probably in a similar way. Just kind of strange. Speaking of my dad, the other thing I wanted to talk about, yeah, this camera might run out of battery before I'm done doing whatever, talking about this shit, but I'll see. So, dad union going on strike. Yeah, so, basically at the beginning of November, or like close to it or some shit, I guess my dad's place, you know, he's in a union or whatever for, he's in a union. I don't know what the hell you even call that. Like, he works at a place that it's a place that has union workers, I guess you could say. This local 1D that he's in. And they normally have a contract renewal. I guess the renewal for their contract, as well as they basically get a reset of their sick days and whatever for the year. They do that in November, beginning of November usually. So I guess this time they would normally sign a contract renewal or whatever for the union and the company. But I guess this time around, they supposedly couldn't come to an agreement after voting or some shit. Or okay, that's definitely enough. There's a lot more than I was kind of expecting in terms of volume overall, but oh well. That's what you get. ×3 of a recipe, even if it's a pretty small one. But yeah, the sticky from the brown sugar. Yeah. Excuse me. But the union and the company, I guess, couldn't come to an agreement, or the people in the union supposedly voted, and the vote was in favor of basically, not agreeing with the terms of the contract or whatever. So, oh shit, that was close. So that means that, I guess technically the company and the union or whatever, the company is on strike, or the union is on strike. So, and it's funny because my dad was telling me this is the first, he's been there for 44, 45 years pretty much. And I guess this is the first time that he's been there when there's been a strike at all or whatever with the union. So that's pretty crazy, pretty abnormal for a guy that's been there for 44, 45 years. The first time that they're actually being a strike or whatever. That's pretty strange. Okay, let me check real quick just to make sure. I think it's half cup, yep, so 3 sticks of butter. Yeah, this is the first time since he's been there, that the union has gone on strike, I guess. Now they've quote unquote honored other unions. So say if another union, some other unions at least, if another union, probably a brother or sister union, whatever the fuck you want to call that bullshit, if they went on strike, then that other union would also go on strike in response or whatever. That was their way of staying in solidarity or whatever the fuck, that bullshit. But this is the first time that his union has gone on strike itself, I guess. So that's pretty crazy. It just kind of all of a sudden happened, and seemingly with very little warning, because I don't know. Maybe this is just my dad and maybe even his brother that aren't they don't keep that many tabs on the whole union shit or whatever. I know my dad doesn't keep very much tabs on that, but seemingly nobody was exactly sure what to do after realizing this. So it was kind of like a bunch of people just not sure what exactly was going to happen next, or what they had to do or whatever, if they should go in, if they shouldn't go in. So it's funny, my dad told me that his brother, they were expecting to go in for the Sunday, or that Sunday or some shit. And when they went there, I guess the company or the warehouse, they locked them out pretty much. So they locked them out from coming in, even though they were expecting to come in, which is funny. And then my dad was expecting his place to do the same, but they didn't. So it's this weird fucking shit right now that my dad's working. Supposedly his place had a sort of agreement to work for the week, or until the 12th or some shit, until this week and half of next week supposedly. they would come possibly with some agreement or some shit. But it's just fucking strange that it's really strange that his company or his union is technically on strike, but they're still working. Like, you think as soon as the union goes on strike, like there is no, it's just like, all right, if you're in the union, then you're a scab or whatever. If you work for the company during that time, kind of shit. But it's like this fucking stupid bullshit, nobody knows what the fuck's going on kind of thing. And it's funny too, because my dad said that the agreement or contract offer that they had was seemingly like he said he's seen like way worse in the past. So he was like kind of surprised that they decided to strike on like this one, I guess, which is just kind of strange. I feel like I probably almost definitely was a part of it in some way, because he was joking about it like the days before, like the end of October or something like that. He was like something about he wasn't hearing like any like as if they had come to a contract agreement or whatever, like they hadn't signed it yet or some shit. So he was thinking they were gonna go on strike or something. He was like had some feeling. He was like, well, we might possibly go on strike or some shit. And I was just telling him, I'm like, man, your fucking stupid place has been around for so fucking long. You've worked so many years there and shit, and there's never been like an actual strike. I'm like, yeah, there's no fucking way they're going on strike or whatever. And then like a day or two after I say that, he's like, oh yeah, they voted that they didn't agree to the contract, so they're pretty much on strike or whatever. I was like, wow, that is fucking retarded. That I feel like I pretty much caused it in a stupid way. But I mean, it is kind of funny because I'm just like, man, with supposedly the economy being so fucked up right now for like so many people, and so many people supposedly having trouble finding jobs or whatever bullshit that is being said by the mainstream media and all this other crap being brought into people's attention and shit. Supposedly less jobs, and people having a hard time getting jobs and all that shit, getting hired. I'm just like, they're really gonna fucking this stupid company or this stupid union's really gonna fucking go on strike now, of all times, of like all fucking times to go on strike. It's like, what? Because I'm like, how can these fucking people, like my dad and stuff, like, will be fine because both of them are currently getting their stupid Social Security checks anyway. They own the house, so they don't have to pay a mortgage or anything like that. So they're pretty good on that. Not from their own, like, competence or anything, or just just kind of luck, I guess you could say, at the end of the day, but, and inheritance and all that shit. But, yeah, we're alright, but I just imagine the other people, like, working for this company and shit, the stupid company he works for and the union and everything. I'm like, who the fuck would have said, like, yeah, this is a good idea to go on strike now, or whatever. I don't know. It's one of those things where I'm like, it definitely feels like reality was just responding to me, like, oh yeah, no, you're saying a strike's definitely not gonna happen. Well, it is. As you say, it shall be done, or whatever the fuck. The opposite in this case. Okay, this actually might have been easier to do as 3 individual batches instead of all at once for this creaming part, but I'm just gonna keep going and hope it forms up alright, I guess. I guess I could talk about that real quick. So, our fridge for the past like week. Yeah, I'll just say about a week since like about November, which is interesting. Like since November started, Fucking weird shit. Some weird shit going on. There's a certain frequency that changed when November hit, I guess. I don't know. Something strange about it. But, yeah, since like last week or some shit, the fridge had started to... I noticed... That was probably like a week and a half ago. Probably, maybe like 2 weeks actually. But I noticed that the fridge was running a lot longer without turning off, or like without turning off the compressor. So I was like, I have a feeling that this thing is probably finally getting low on Freon, as it had like previously, like two other times. And in those two other times, it helped to definitely it helped to to add Freon. So I was like, yeah, we hadn't done it in like fucking more than 2 years at this point, I think. Yeah, I think it was like actually 3 years or some fucking bullshit. Maybe it was, yeah, I think it was 3 years and like 3.5 years since we'd done it before, which is fucking nuts because the times that we refilled it before that were like a year apart each or some shit. But then I was like, holy shit, this charge lasted like 3 fucking years for some reason. I was like, that's fucking nuts. Just the fact that it lasted that long without having to be recharged again, it was just strange. But the symptoms I was noticing was not just the fact that the fridge was staying on, but I also noticed that it was getting cooler, or no, it wasn't getting as cool in the fridge section, but the freezer section was still pretty cold. But yeah, it was still running and all that shit way longer than it was, pretty much never turning off the compressor seemingly. And then, you know, I looked up stuff on ChatGPT and videos and stuff, and I was like, okay, I have a feeling it's probably low Freon. But then I started noticing the other symptom, which I was thinking maybe it was something else. Kind of led me down a red herring or whatever for a little bit there. Well, what was it? I noticed that the fridge was like not getting cold at all, or like very little. So then I looked at the evaporator coils in the back of the freezer, behind the metal grate or whatever, where the evaporator is covered. And yeah, it was fucking completely frozen up. Completely frosted and frozen up. So I was like, all right, that's not good. That's an indication that either the defrost cycle is fucked up in some way, or the defrost the heater is messed up. But I had a hunch that it could have been one of those. But I had a hunch it wasn't that, because I was like, why, you know, the fact that the fridge is not, it's not, the compressor is like never shutting off, it's never reaching its temperature or whatever. So I was like, this symptom, that being the evaporator coils freezing up, is not the root cause or whatever. Obviously, that's never the root cause. Pretty much, that's just a symptom of another problem. But that other problem wasn't necessarily also the thing I was saying. It was like the defrost cycle. I was saying, or I was thinking, I was like, well, maybe after I defrosted those coils twice, I was like, it could be the heating element, and it could be something else, but I had a feeling, I was like, I have a feeling it's low Freon. And because the logic being that if the Freon is low, it won't be able to cool as efficiently or effectively, so it'll take longer or make it nearly impossible for the fridge section to reach its desired temperature. So the fridge will keep running, the compressor will keep running, trying to reach that target temperature, but it never will because of its less efficient cooling, less effective cooling, and therefore the defrost cycle will never be given an opportunity to run, basically, because I think pretty much the compressor has to not be running or whatever. I don't know exactly in this system what its criteria is for being allowed to defrost or whatever, go through a defrost cycle. But yeah, if the compressor is constantly running, then it basically will never run a defrost cycle, which then eventually, as the compressor continues running, the evaporator cores are pretty much guaranteed to frost up, eventually at least. Especially if you keep opening the fridge and letting humidity in and shit. So, after a few days of dealing with, that sort of thing, just having to manually defrost it like twice, with like a spray bottle and hot water, but after doing that like twice, we finally moved the fridge, got behind it. We already had a piercing valve there for the past times that we refilled it. I had to get new canisters of Freon and the gauges for measuring the pressure, as well as getting the Freon in there, pretty much connecting it to the piercing valve and shit. Filled it up to, I think, about 3 psi on the low pressure end, which that might be on the high end depending on the fridge, I guess, but I didn't really have, that much exact info on like what to get it to. But from some videos, that seemed to be like a good range. But I got it to like 3 psi. I think it's it's kind of hard to read with like how small the gauges, the dials are on each section. But I think I got it to 3. Put it back together, cleaned up the coils in the back and all that shit as best we could with a vacuum. And yeah, after that it was running pretty good. Or at least it was running way better than it had before, because it was actually reaching the target temperatures. I did lower the fridge temperature to a lower amount, because I was like, well, we have it set the coldest, so I'm like, if it's having a harder time reaching that super, that coldest temperature, I'm like, all right, fuck it, just make it a little lower. We don't need the fridge that cold. And it seemed to work. And it's being a little loud. I don't know if that's I don't think that's the compressor. I think that's just the evaporator fan vibrating the metal grate or whatever that I put on, but I guess something is kind of making it a little bit like rattly or noisy. But for the past few days, it seems to be good. It seems to be shutting off, which means that it reached. It seems to be shutting off the compressor, which means it reached its target temperature, which is good. And then it seems like the back of the freezer, at least from what I could see from the fins, without taking the entire back off, seems to not be frosting up, which is also good. So I think it's that was probably the main problem. Though I noticed, I don't know exactly how the compressor system works in this fridge. It's a pretty cheap fridge or whatever. It's not like anything fancy or anything, so I don't know what sensing system and logic it uses when to stop the compressor and when to run it and shit, because it might just be fucking straight up just a timer instead of like a temperature range kind of thing. So it runs it for this long when it has to, and just runs it for that long even if it's already reached a certain temperature or whatever. I don't know. That would make sense, just because I mean, I don't really see any specific thing that looks like a thermometer or something on the little computer for the computer thing with the potentiometer for setting that. So I'm like, it probably is just a timer. Could be wrong though. But I mean, we'll have to see if we have to replace it sooner rather than later. I don't know. But at the very least, maybe you got another few months out of it, hopefully. But yeah, I talked about that way longer than I probably needed to, but fuck. Yeah, this mixing this, or creaming this, is definitely pretty difficult all at once, I'll say that. I mean, I think this is good enough, honestly, even though there's still some stuff on the bottom that's not, but it's fine. But yeah, doing this all at once in one big batch is pretty taxing on the old arm there. But then again, if I didn't do this, then I'd be just doing it the same thing, but 3 separate times in a smaller portion. So yeah. Alright, let me check what I have to do next. It's all dry shit, so I guess I'll do that. So I got 3 eggs. 3 eggs to add into this, and then mix it up. And then I could do the dry ingredients afterwards. And that's when I have to portion this out. So first, I'm going to add 3 eggs. And then I'll worry about the other shit. Because that's when I'm going to be separating the batches out based on the flavor. With the dries and shit. Okay. I'll use my dough, my Danish whisk to do this part. Try and clean off the spoon as much as I can. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea if any of these will be better than the nutmeg cookies that I made with the same recipe, but I want to try them out. I want to give each individual somewhat irregular, or whatever you want to call it, somewhat non-conventional spices or whatever. At least spices that are not non-conventionally used in like a sweet baked good or something. I want to give them individually all their own chance to see what they're like on their own, rather than combine with other things or in specific dishes or some shit. So I want to give them their own shot. See how they turn out. Might be horrible, but I don't think it'll be inedible, but it might be strange. Alright. Arrange these a bit. But the yolk almost looked a little weird. But the next thing I was going to talk about was the quite a big large egg. Quite a large egg. Clean up as much as I can see. Rinse it in the sink. I have no idea. I mean, I'll know when it beeps. This camera decides to run out of battery or whatever. Definitely won't last forever, but that's okay. At the very least, I kind of know how long it can last on one charge, which is a little bit over an hour. But if you don't keep track of how long you've been recording, then you don't really know. You don't really know now, do you? Until it just shuts off. At the very least, At least what happened last time, when it shuts off from power, it beeps. It beeps like 2 or 3 times as if you're shutting it off, so at least it gives some indication that it turned off for some reason. Okay, so that's the eggs. Put this back here. The next thing I was going to talk about, I've rambled a lot more than I was expecting about those 2 topics. But men expressing the anima traits more than women. Examples being Billy and myself, women being more logical and calculated. So, I just wanted to, I guess I kind of thought about that today, and I wanted to bring it up, I guess, again, even though I believe I've talked about it, and I'm pretty sure we've talked about it in our podcast. At the very least, I know Rudy and I have talked about it in our conversation, or our direct message conversations on Discord or whatever. But, so, this is the kind of stuff that seemingly almost nobody talks about, honestly, but we've just kind of observed, as like a behavior of men and women and people or whatever. But, maybe Jung and his scholars, maybe they would know what is being talked about and to some degree in this topic. But basically, that men kind of ironically express the animus, or feminine, or female, whatever you want to say, the female or feminine characteristics. They express them more like, not so much readily, but probably, I guess that too, but they express them more than women do in like reality, or in actual practice or whatever. Like, you see men seeming to be more capable of expressing and acting in a feminine, or these characteristics of what people would consider female characteristics of stuff like expressing like love, quote unquote love, or like being emotional, or being like quote unquote romantic, caring, unconditional love, or whatever you want to call it. Like, those kind of characteristics, men seem to express them, or be able to be capable of expressing them more, I guess you could quote unquote purely, even than women, which is very weird and ironic that women seemingly don't express these supposedly female characteristics as much as men. And it is kind of like also the other way around as well, that women almost, I don't know about that though, I mean, but I think in like practice, seemingly women express the more masculine traits even more than men in a weird way. Like you think that men would be the more like calculating and logical ones. Like, that's always the trope or the stereotype, is that men are the calculating and logical ones, the reasonable ones, the ones that are less controlled, or whatever you want to say, less moved by their emotions, more so than logic and reasoning and like, hard calculations and shit like that. But in reality, it seems to be the fucking opposite, where the men are the ones that are the more emotional thinking and acting, whereas the women are the more quote-unquote logical and calculating in their actions and how they react to things. but maybe not expressed in the ways that we traditionally might consider them. Like when I say with women that they're more calculating, like they I'm not saying they don't, but most women are not very good at the maths. Most women, I mean, I know most people aren't very good at the maths, but especially women are not that great at the maths for the most part. That's partially why women are very bad with their money and their finances and stuff, keeping control of that. But they're very calculating, and they're very logical with their, say, decisions on what guys to settle with or what guys to try to pursue as that would best benefit them. You might say that this counts for like stuff, even stuff like what, you know, men that they want to have like sexual relations with or have kids with or whatever the fuck you like, whatever, whoever ones that they want to pursue for like sexual desires and stuff. They generally have, even though they wouldn't admit it, they have an idea of like what kind of guy that they're pursuing or trying to look for. But in the same light, they also do the same thing with the schlubby hubbies or whatever, the guys that they're looking for to get in relationships with and to quote unquote I'd say even quote unquote, but I'd say that really is what it is most of the time, to exploit the resources of some other guy who is maybe less desirable in a sexual way, but more desirable for a financial security, that kind of thing, for a purely resources a purely resource related reason. So women are more like that, but men, they more do it for the potentially the physical, but also a lot the emotional feeling that they get from being with that person or woman or whatever. What feeling they get with that person. How am I gonna do this? Well, I'll just keep talking from now on, I think. But like, so yeah, it's just weird that, at least from what I've seen, women are more calculating and logical in their decisions when it comes to stuff that kind of matters for them, such as how they can attain resources, security, even reproductive purposes or whatever you want to say, like their desires to reproduce and shit like that. Those are more calculating and logical, whereas with men it is less calculating and logical, much more emotionally fueled and based on stuff like that, less than logical calculations and shit, and based on resources. Like, men don't really care if their partner is not making a whole shit ton of money or making any money in a lot of cases, but women do care about that much more than men. I would say at the very least. And so for the examples, I was thinking like of the Animus, or the Anima, the female, being more expressed in men. And when Billy, you made your one video where you're talking about having a dream about your younger sister, and then you're talking like kind of recalling, or what, I forget what the word is. You were recalling taking care of her when she was younger, and you were still pretty young, but she was even younger or whatever. And basically trying to be like almost a parental figure for her, because your parents were not, providing that for him or for her or your other siblings or yourself and shit. So you're trying to be like almost a surrogate parent or father in that kind of way. where there was none otherwise, where there's a void of that. And I was saying, like, you know, would I very rarely think that I would see a woman that would be thinking like the same kind of thing in that same situation, where they'd be like, oh man, I wanted to, or they would go out of their way to, like, oh yeah, I wanted to try and save my siblings or whatever, take care of my siblings. You know, maybe some of them would do it, but I think they wouldn't do it. They would kind of do it probably thinking more of what they can get out of it in the end, in a way. Whereas with men, you're just kind of doing it because you feel some desire to do it, or to help others or support others or fix something or try to fix something kind of deal. And maybe and also probably the just the idea of, like, unconditionally caring for something or whatever, like caring for something without expecting something back. So that's why I was thinking of that, is like an expression of the anima traits in men that you don't really see that much in women, or you see men kind of expressing it more than women even. And I was thinking the same thing about myself when I was just making my dad's lunch today. Because I was like, man, whenever I make this lunch, like, you know, I actually try to make something, and I try to put care into it and everything like that to some extent. Like, I'm not going crazy at the end of the day, because I know I'm not doing it or whatever because it's like, for some reason, like, oh, I want to make like a fucking perfectly looking lunch or some bullshit. Like, I don't really care about that, but I want to have my dad have a lunch that I can, you know, he'll enjoy or whatever. That's like not just bullshit slapped together kind of thing. And I'm not gonna do it with while complaining or whatever. But me doing that and me doing other things around the house and stuff, not really looking at it with like feeling like I have complaints on doing it or whatever. I just kind of do it because I'm like, I might as well or whatever. I feel like I should do it, or I want to do it in a way. That's just how I am, I guess. But then when I see my mom in comparison, like, she complains and she doesn't really put that much care into making the lunch. She just slaps it together. She kind of expects to be sort of thanked sometimes. I think, like, I'm sure she wants to be when she does that kind of stuff. I don't know. But you can just tell, like, the way she acts, she doesn't want to be doing it. Like, she doesn't like the process of doing it, and she's just doing it because she thinks she has to, not because she kind of, like, wants to or whatever. And I don't know. It's just, I look at that as kind of like one of those things where it's like, I don't know, acting way differently than you'd expect, like, women to act, but how they really do act, kind of like that kind of fucked up way, I think. Yeah, that was kind of the main things I wanted to say. I guess it's just weird that, like, yeah, women acting more like men and men acting more like women, or at the very least, men seeming to be more capable of being women or filling that kind of quote-unquote role of the female traits better than women can. But then women also more often practicing the supposedly male characteristics of, you know, being more quote-unquote logical and calculating for their own benefit kind of shit. Whereas men kind of do a lot of that stuff for themselves as well, but also because they want to be accepted and by their community and people like that, as well as feel useful, as well as fix things. Like, that's just kind of what men seem to like. But at the same time, they also are more caring than women in a lot of cases, because I don't know. You won't see many stories, even though they'll bring it up, or you'll see stories like this, but then you'll kind of read a little deeper, and you're just like, yeah, I can see that woman is doing it for this reason, not because she cares about these kids or some shit. She cares about more how it looks and what she can take from it, more so than the guys who just do it because they could, or they feel like some kind of drive or desire or obligation to do it and not even be thanked in the end kind of shit, the unconditional caring or love or whatever. It's just really weird. Like, everything's fucking upside down. I mean, I think it's always been like that. That's just how this reality works, I guess. Everything is like the inverse of what you think what we've been told it should be, kind of shit. As well as something, I'm not gonna go over this, but that was just an interesting topic that Rudy and I were talking about. Was I noticed on like how this reality is like this reality is like definitely primarily derived off of like female energy or something, like feminine energy, because you see in these like video games and shit and fictional stories so often, besides just the way that people actually behave and stuff, the obviously like female quote unquote ruling female characteristics or traits or whatever. You see like stuff like Mother Brain and like Queens and stuff like that as like villains or whatever, and I don't know, just one of these like prevailing themes that you see all the time, where it's always like some entity that is always female in nature or whatever, and so many other things. Just the way that this place kind of works, it really does feel like it is more of a feminine energy overall than anything. But I don't know. Maybe this was definitely this was some kind of change that happened. I don't think so. From like 9/11 and CV and CV and all that shit, some reality shift. I think there was reality shifts from those events, but I don't think that they changed that really. I think the feminine energy has basically prevailed in this realm for what I believe would be the existence of this place. Honestly, because you just look at everything and it really just comes down to, when you think about it, like the family structure and everything. Rudy and I have talked about this. Rudy's talked about it. But the like there was never a patriarchy kind of shit. Like there was never patriarchies. It was always, in the end of the day, a matriarchy kind of thing. The women, even if it's people on the outside or whatever, looking at it without thinking at all, we're like, oh well, there's a king, or supposedly. I don't believe in any of that shit even existed. I think that's way too far back before this place started. That's all stories, as far as I'm concerned. But stuff like that, these presidents and shit. But at the end of the day, they all are led by women. Like the females always run these households, and not always, but the ones that are in the current reality, almost all of them are ran by women. Like the mothers and stuff, and the grandmothers are the ones that kind of like run the family, or they're that kind of thing. They rule over the family more so than the husbands do. So it's like almost everything is like a matriarchy more than a patriarchy. That's for sure in this realm. So I think the overall prevailing energy of this realm is more feminine than masculine. That's like, I think that is plainly obvious to me, at least at this point. Does that, I don't know what that changes, but just something I wanted to talk about. And the last thing I wanted to talk about, that I had on my notes at least, I was thinking just before I did this, like an hour before I was doing this, for some reason I was thinking I might want to try to play that game, that game Deep Rock Galactic again, or to give it another try. I don't know, because after the updates and stuff that it had, maybe it's fucking like really shitty now. I have no idea. I don't even know if my current PC can like really run it well. or anything. I forget if the last time I tried it I was running on this or not. I really do forget, but just had an urge to play because it was a fun game when I did play it. It was just one of those games that was enjoyable to play. Like, it felt good. The controls were very tight and stuff. The movement was very tight. Maybe I'll try. I'm not like that fucking. I've been thinking of playing something, but I don't know if it's gonna be that. But it might be something I try, just to see if it runs and all that shit. But if I do, and I'm like, all right, maybe I'll ask you, Rudy, if you want to try it, and then we could play it multiplayer because it's definitely a better game when you have friends, or a better game when you have other people to play with. Even though it's fun to play single player too, but it's more fun with other people. But maybe, I'll have to see though, because I don't know. I don't even know if my PC can really run it that well at this point with the integrated graphics and shit. I have no clue, but as well as maybe the updates made the fucking game like way shittier. Who knows? I'm sure they didn't make it really that much better, but yeah. And that was all the stuff I had noted down to talk about. And I don't feel like doing whatever math, and there's not going to be that much to see. I'm just going to be mixing fucking dough, the dry ingredients and shit, so I did most of the work. Okay, not technically. I still have to fucking do the work of mixing all this bullshit in three separate portions. But yeah, it's not going to be anything. I'm just going to put it away in a big bowl and then put that in the fridge pretty much to be used another day. And hopefully that fridge shuts off, because the compressor, because it's been running a while, and I hope it's actually reaching its target temperature or whatever it does. I don't know. As long as I hear it turn off and stay off for a while, that's all I care about. But if it doesn't, then I'm like, well, we might still have an issue here, which that's fair enough. It's a at least 9-year-old fridge. That's pretty much nearing the average end of life span of like a fridge for a lot of people, I guess. So wouldn't be that surprising. But besides that, I know this GoPro's probably gonna run out of battery soon. I don't have anything else to really talk about, but I guess I'll end it here. But thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.